This episode of Midco Sports Magazine is presented by Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine.
Hello, welcome again to Midco Sports Magazine as we creep closer to March Madness and the culmination of the college and high school basketball seasons. And it really is the trip and not necessarily just the destination that matters to a lot of young players and coaches, and we've got three stories to prove that point. We have a young player at Hamlin High School who has missed every game so far because of injury, but he is doing all he can to get back for just one more game in his senior season. And a coach at Northern State University discovering that bigger is not necessarily better and that the quality of the career matters most. And we start with a similar story at South Dakota State, where the Jacks have had a knack for finding under-the-radar players that have turned out to be some of the best the school has ever had. Well, the latest diamond in the rough at SDSU is from Des Moines, and his name is Douglas Wilson.
They call him a franchise player, an individual that you can build a team around. The foundation, the go-to guy, the main man. And Douglas Wilson is all of those right now for the Jackrabbits. At 6'7", he's a combination of fury and flair. He has a certain elegance when he elevates. And if he wasn't rocking rims, he could probably be a fantastic wide receiver.
I was just someone who liked to play every sport. Football, growing up, football was like more my thing because I was fast. And then I think once I got to like 8th grade, freshman year, I like to play basketball because that's what a lot of my friends like to do too. So I think that's where I started to love basketball just a little bit more.
He hooped at Hoover High School in Des Moines, Iowa. And then developed into a JUCO superstar at Kirkwood Community College, just a few hours from home in Cedar Rapids.
It just felt like home. I mean, the facilities, everything was nice, like the people. Everybody was nice, like there was just open arms. And then along with that, I had a high school teammate that was already there, Chris King, and he really helped sum up and make my decision, really. Just knowing I had a familiar face, knowing that I got somebody I can go to, that helped out a lot too.
Wilson earned National Player of the Year honors in his second season at Kirkwood and led the Eagles to the Division II Junior College Championship. He committed to SDSU after his first year at Kirkwood, and you have to wonder if he could have had bigger offers if he had waited.
Who knows, but you know there could have been some more interest a little bit there towards the end, but you know he found a fit, and I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, everybody has their dream school. Everybody has a school like they would wish they could go to, but from being here, I wouldn't trade it for anything. I wouldn't choose any other school over South Dakota State.
You know, Doug's a really loyal guy. You know, that's one thing that I have really come to love about him is he's been a really loyal person, you know, over the years. And obviously, you know, getting the chance to work with him for 2 more years was also part of my decision to come up here too. You know, obviously that wasn't the main one, but, you know, just an added bonus to be able to coach him again for another 2 years is pretty special.
Wilson is exciting and efficient on offense. And that has actually been a surprise to the Jackrabbit coaches. They saw him initially as a great defender.
Defensively, you know, his versatility is something that stood out to me right away. And that was evident when I recruited him and certainly when he first got here.
My high school coach was really, really huge on defense, and I think that coming from that program and harping defense all the time, defense was just coming easier to me as I progressed to the next level. And I think that each year I'm just getting better at it.
He's extremely versatile, and we were able to guard ball screens multiple ways with him. We're able to switch, we're able to show really hard because he's so quick at recovering.
He was also quick to endear himself to his Jackrabbit teammates. Peterson says Wilson has taken big leaps forward in his maturity, and he has overcome his shy nature to grow up and grow into his main man status.
In college, you can't be like you are in high school. I mean, everybody's the #1 player, but when you go to college, that can be taken at any moment. So I think maturing and becoming prepared every day that really helped me out a lot.
He's willing to score, but he's also more than willing to pass it to his open teammates, and he's always been like that. And he celebrates his teammates' successes more than his own. And when you have a player like that, you feel really good about your chemistry.
I would say from coming in the summer, the team chemistry was there. The relationships we were building happened fast, and it's like I knew these guys for more than a year. But It's very important, and it's great. I mean, how our relationship is now, I think that plays a part in our success.
He's a humble guy. He comes in here with a lot of expectations for himself, but he knows he's got to earn everything. And I think that really helps himself with his teammates, his new teammates, and I think that's what's helped our chemistry a little bit too. When your best player works pretty hard and is pretty humble, I think that really helps out the rest of the group.
I think when your best player has that quality, our most talented player has that quality, I think it's easier for other people to kind of jump onto that wagon. You know what I mean? And Doug showed that from day one.
And the Jacks hope to keep on riding the Wilson wagon and see how far this power forward prodigy can take them.
And now it's early. You know, obviously he's got a lot to prove, and he knows that, you know, obviously. But he has the potential to do that. He did that for us at Kirkwood. I mean, obviously we were always a pretty good program, just like South Dakota State's always been a pretty good program, but it does take a really good player to hopefully make it a special year or two, hopefully. And I think Doug's got the capability of doing that.
Up next, a football injury has kept him on the sideline for the entire basketball season. And while he's happy being a terrific teammate, he would give anything to play one more game in his senior season.
Midco Sports Magazine on Midco Sports Network is presented by Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine.
Welcome back. When you got a good thing going, you never know when the ride might get cut short, leave you longing for one more time around. And in a sporting sense of that sentiment, a young man at Hamlin High School in South Dakota is a perfect example. Here's Jason Andera.
It's February in the middle of small-town South Dakota.
Hey, focus on take care of the ball, passing with numbers, getting to the basket.
High school seniors all over the state are winding up their final season of high school basketball. Nash Grantham hoped to be one of those seniors until 4 months ago when a football injury steered his hopes to something much more elemental. Nash was the starting quarterback for the Hamlin Chargers with his eyes set on the playoffs.
So we were going down the field trying to score before halftime, and we ran a Hail Mary play.
Nash ended up scrambling out to the right and decided to run.
When I saw it, it looked like he went shoulder to shoulder with the first kid, and then he got tackled by two other kids.
Nice clean hit, something you see every Friday night, and I didn't really expect much to come out of it.
We rolled out of bounds, and then somewhere in the rolling, I hear like my ears started ringing.
But when Nash kind of turns over and he goes, "My ears are ringing," that's the exact words I remember him saying, and then I'm like, okay, and he goes, "That's not good."
I got up and I started stretching, and then our backup went in, finished the half.
Well, maybe he's got a concussion or he just got his bell rung, and he never waved me over, so it can't be serious.
I get to the back of our huddle and I look down at my feet, and when I come back up to look up, I just hear a clunk.
But he comes and says, "I just heard a clunk in my head, like in my ears." And Casey looked at me, Dr. Johnson, and I looked at him, and he said, "Well, we need to investigate that a little further."
And then we saw him get in the car, and everybody's heart just sinks, and you don't ever want to see somebody in a situation where they get hurt.
On the way to the ER, the gravity of the situation intensified.
Every little bump in the road, Nash is getting a little more uncomfortable, and my wife is in the back seat, and I get a text from Casey, and he says, "You're going to go right into the ER. They're lined up for a CT scan. You don't even have to check in." And then I began to go, okay, this is an anxious text.
The CT scan revealed a C1 Jefferson burst fracture in his spinal column, an injury most frequently associated with hitting the back of your head by diving into shallow water. According to Nash's doctor, only 3 cases in the last 40 years were caused by a football injury.
I was like, okay, he's done. Sports are over, football's over, basketball's over, track's over. Let's hope that this doesn't progress to a worse state. Can we keep him? Right now he's walking, he's talking, but is it going to stay that way?
Then my mom came in the room and she was crying, and so I knew it was more, probably more than just a bruised muscle or something.
The tears are sadness for the injury, but it's more a realization of watching a kid's plans and dreams be altered.
Those first few days and weeks were very hard for Nash. He couldn't sleep more than an hour or two at a time. He couldn't move or shower by himself. But as the football season ended and basketball season began, he continued to improve in mobility despite having a neck brace. He attended practices, gave support, and worked out as much as he physically could. He did all this without knowing if a return to the court was even possible. The severity and rarity of the injury didn't have a playbook for rehab, but that also meant optimism for recovery couldn't be ruled out.
It's really hard to feel sorry for yourself and pout when you have a kid wearing a neck brace trying to do drills on the side, so that's just been amazing to see, and it's actually been kind of impressive.
If the fracture had collapsed inward on the spinal cord, he could have been a quadriplegic or required immobilizing surgery. But because the fracture went away from the spinal cord, a return to normal life was possible, and so was a return to competition.
He says, so we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and he could, we'll see in 3 months, he could go back to playing.
Well, if everything's perfect, there's no reason you can't go back, but everything's got to be perfect.
Right now, it's wonderful to see him have no pain. Headaches went away about 2 weeks after the injury. And at home, he takes his brace off and he's able to do some range of motion stuff without any pain. That's encouraging, but it still may be that it's too great of a risk to play.
I was talking to my dad one time, and he said, I'm a conflicted man, because I'm trying to think of the words he said, but he was just like, my heart wants you to play because I know you love it and I love watching you, but my mind says be cautious because I love seeing you at my house more than seeing you on the court.
Positive, passion, and persistence, guys. You have been unbelievable with your persistence. We got to keep doing it though, okay? And it pays off. If you find a way to keep doing that through tough times, it pays off not only in basketball but in life. Let's get after it, have a lot of fun for each other, okay? Bring it in. Team on 3, 1, 2, 3.
2 months into the basketball season, Nash and his family finally saw an opportunity to get back out there. His vertebrae had healed enough to safely return to the court.
He's a kid that's never going to give up, and he's got the right perspective in life. So that's a learning experience, not only for him, but for everybody.
Nash doesn't have to lead his team to the playoffs or get any all-conference awards to top off his senior year. His positive attitude, unwavering faith, and perseverance already brought victory to him and his team.
So regardless of what happens with this season with him or with our team, that's something that we're all going to carry with us for the rest of our lives.
Still to come, the coaching carousel has dropped Saul Phillips off in some significant spots, and he has landed now at a lower level than his previous post, but it seems to be the right fit at the right time. That story coming up next, but first, head games, the mental approach in the science of sports.
Sports science is the use of scientific tools and methods to improve athletic health and performance. Most of the research on peak performance is going to break it down to a physical component, a mental component, and an emotional component. And so if all three of those are not on point, the athlete's going to have a rough day. Where does that athlete or that coach, where do those individuals go to get help with their mental game? Sometimes it's something really specific, mental skills-wise. Hey, we need some better goal setting. Sometimes it's we need to improve our self-confidence. If the coach, for lack of a better term, sort of freaks out, loses control, loses his or her own attention, that's what I try to help them with. Someone to push them for awareness.
Midco Sports Magazine on Midco Sports Network is presented by Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine.
Welcome back. Saul Phillips is a well-known basketball coach in the Dakotas, was at North Dakota State, and now at Northern State University in Aberdeen. He made national headlines recently by helping a woman in a snowstorm. True story. And as David Brown explains, that one act off the court tells you a lot about Saul Phillips on the court.
Saul Phillips, first and foremost, is a storyteller. Sure, his profession is basketball coach, but everything he says is part of a larger narrative. From battling a future NBA player,
Doug McDermott who happened to be pretty good. I beat him one-on-one, by the way. He was 3, but I beat him.
To being the star of his own sitcom.
I'm the Michael Scott of the NSIC. I can be groan-inducing as well.
To understanding his limitations.
Can't golf, can't dance, can't sing, but I have great stage presence, so that makes up for that.
Saul Phillips never lets an opportunity pass to tell a tale.
I'm kind of a smart aleck if you haven't picked up on that.
Oh, we've definitely picked it up, but it's also why Saul Phillips never gets too down.
If you're going to take the good, you're going to have to deal with some bad along the way. And in my family, in my program, life's not fair is a swear word. You can't say it.
What is and isn't fair is always up for debate. But there's no denying the fact that Saul Phillips knew from a very young age that he wanted his life to be around the game of basketball.
I used to take those surveys from our guidance counselors. What do you want to be when you grow up? And you check off what you're interested in, and it comes back, you should be a fire watcher or a welder or whatever. I'd be like, nope, I'm going to be a basketball coach. I just was always drawn toward this profession. I've always been drawn toward this sport. I can't really explain it, but it certainly hasn't waned in 47 years, so I don't see it waning now.
After a college playing career at Wisconsin-Platteville, he worked his way up the coaching ranks, learning from the likes of Bo Ryan, Greg McDermott, and Tim Miles. He's plucked different ideas from all 3 branches of that coaching tree. But like any good story, the main lesson Saul learned was that there's no single way to approach the job.
I grew up wanting to be Bob Knight. That is no kidding. I thought he was the coolest thing walking, and then I grew up, and I don't have a lot of similarities in terms of personality traits. I love watching guys get better and watching guys succeed.
They first succeeded at North Dakota State, where Phillips and his unbridled joy led the Bison to 2 Summit League tournament championships and perhaps the pinnacle of his coaching career, a first-round upset over Oklahoma in the 2014 NCAA tournament.
I'll never forget the feeling of seeing our guys running across the court after we beat Oklahoma and the looks on their faces like, can you believe we just did that?
With success came opportunity, and Saul jumped at the chance to coach at Ohio University just a few weeks after the Oklahoma upset. It's a chapter in his life that first read like another positive step on his basketball quest. But his teams at Ohio didn't win enough games, and off the court, his wife Nicole was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Watching her go through that and continuing to be a mom and continuing to keep a very positive attitude, that doesn't wash away easily. That's real life stuff.
It was a humbling experience for our protagonist. Nicole survived breast cancer, and Saul continued to roam the sidelines until he was told not to. Ohio University decided not to renew his contract after the 2018-2019 season.
Well, I would say this, that I just love to coach. Forget where, when, why, how, and to know that you might not have that opportunity the next year that's tough.
Please help me welcome the 22nd head men's basketball coach in Northern State University history, Mr. Saul Phillips.
Luckily for Saul, an opportunity arose at Northern State University in Aberdeen, South Dakota. Not necessarily a chance to come back home, but to come back to someplace familiar, where a story of success could still be told.
We needed somebody that could come in here and take a very successful program and keep building on it.
The drama of the past couple of years gave way to stability. And then comedy.
Right away, I didn't know anything about him, never heard of him.
No, I've never heard of him before that.
I'll get over them not knowing who I was before. They know me now, I know that for sure.
The basketball odyssey of Saul Phillips has had its share of twists and turns. But it's also established that no matter where he is or what he does, there's one thing he knows for certain. Basketball is where his book starts and ends.
I don't have a retirement plan, I don't have a plan B, I just like doing this. And if the world were to end tomorrow and I had one day worth of activities, a good chunk of that day would be dedicated to something with basketball because that's what I like to do. I love to watch guys achieve their wildest dreams. And that's what I'm here trying to do with this group.
And joined now by Brownie, David Brown, and his energy is boundless. It is unbelievable. I don't know where he gets it, but this is a remarkable story as well. To follow up, shortly after you did this interview with Saul in Aberdeen, they were playing at Augustana in Sioux Falls.
Yep.
And there is an amazing story that follows that. Pick it up from there.
So I was actually calling the game for Midco, Northern State versus Augustana. Northern State won, talked to him, just kind of, off the cuff, said safe travels to Wayne. Well, little did I realize as he was driving to Wayne, Nebraska, gets into a blinding snowstorm, has to stop, sees a car in a ditch, goes to check on the people. There are 3 inside, including a pregnant woman who says she's in labor. He calls emergency. They finally get to their location. They're able to get the woman and her family members to safety. And so it's not surprising that obviously the irony is we talked to him just a couple days before this happened, but based on our interview with him, I was not surprised in the slightest that this happened to him and he happened to be in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, you hear Saul Phillips and, that makes sense. And baby
lot of sense.
Baby Hazel was born. She's fine. Unbelievable story. And circle back to his relationship now with the city of Aberdeen, great basketball city, as you said in the story, but how's that going with Coach Saul Phillips there in his first year?
Nothing but positive. And what people forget is that Northern State has actually led Division II in basketball attendance for 10 straight years. And so you want to talk about a basketball crazy area, that's Aberdeen, South Dakota. So you talk about the right person to the right profession being Saul Phillips. How about the right person with the right city? Saul Phillips loves basketball, so does Aberdeen.
Perfect match. All right, thanks a lot. David Brown.
This has been Midco Sports Magazine, presented by Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine.